Today, we are joined by LaShonda Brown with Bootstrap Biz Advice.
And instead of being the person clicking all the buttons, I wanted to educate entrepreneurs on how to do the things that I learned how to do.
Tell us where the business is at now, and then we can get into kind of how you grew it.
About 80% of my revenue comes from brands in some way, shape, or form, and about 20% comes from my students.
What were the initial growth levers that you had?
And becoming a Canva verified expert, a Flowdesk partner, that really helped me to really scale what I was doing online.
What are some things that you have seen be key influences on your success on YouTube?
And so I think that combination of the SEO driven content and live streaming is really what's contributed a lot to growth for me.
A lot of people who have communities, they say it's a lot of work. What would you say to that?
I think the power of a membership, it can take away work from other aspects of your business. I really depend heavily on my community when it comes to.
All right, welcome back to the Niche Pursuits podcast. My name is Jared Bauman. Today, we are joined by LaShonda Brown with Bootstrap Biz Advice. LaShonda, welcome on board.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited for this conversation.
Yep, it's going to be good. I was telling you before we hit record that everything that you specialize in and that you spend time on is super synonymous with the things we talk about here in the podcast. So I think there's just going to be so many different topics we'll be able to get into. Before we get into kind of the details, though, maybe tell us about yourself, bring us up to speed on your business journey, both prior and then, currently with Bootstrap Biz Advice.
Yeah, so I have a background in marketing. We started with video production and we still have a video production company today. And then I transitioned to doing marketing consulting. I was a fractional CMO for a while. And I eventually got to a point where I felt like I had learned so much about small business marketing that I wanted to kind of turn things on its head. And instead of being the person clicking all the buttons, I wanted to educate entrepreneurs on how to do the things that I learned how to do, specifically on how to grow on a budget. And so that's where Bootstrap Biz Advice came from. It was a rebrand for my YouTube channel, and it's kind of taken on a life of its own. We now have a whole team and we create content for so many different tech companies and really try to connect the small business community to the tech community with the tools that they need to grow and to scale online.
How did you end up landing here? I mean, you had so many other things you were doing in your past. I mean, fractional CMO, what ended up, was it a certain moment or a certain client or a certain idea? What ended up being the launching point for Bootstrap Biz Advice?
Yeah, so I have been posting little tutorials for my marketing clients on a YouTube channel simply because they were asking me the same question over and over. This was back in the day when the idea of lead magnets was just getting started.
Oh, yeah.
And so people were asking, how do I get MailChimp to deliver a freebie? And so I'm like, oh my goodness, let me go ahead and make a tutorial for you. And so I would post it on this channel attached to my marketing company email. And then I began to realize that people other than my marketing clients must be watching them because they started to get, hundreds and then thousands of views. And so it was always something I had in the background as something that I could refer to. But then, once I was 10 years into business, I thought, well, what if that was my job? What if creating content on this channel that I've had, all along, just kind of posting sporadically, what if that became where I dumped most of my energy? And so I kind of flipped it on its head, started doing that, and it began to grow. So I always kind of had it in the background.
Yeah, no, that's fun. That's fun. I think there's a lot of parallels probably for a lot of people who are listening and their business, in terms of how it got started. Started with an idea. Hey, Jared here. So if your website earns revenue through ads, you're probably leaving money on the table. Advertisers now bid highest on ad spaces powered by first-party data. So emails and phone numbers that you probably already collect. Easy ID by Ezoic makes tapping into this revenue effortless. Ezoic securely manages your audience data, instantly connecting it to premium advertisers, increasing your earnings, and protecting you from dropping ad rates. So don't miss out on the revenue that you deserve. Visit ezoic.com/EZID and secure your ad revenue future today. Again, that's ezoic.com/EZID. All right, now back to the podcast. Tell us where the business is at now, and then we can get into kind of how you grew it, whether, maybe the makeup of the business, how it's structured, where you earn your revenue, any kind of stats or numbers you want to share, and then we'll get into how you built it.
Yeah, so essentially, I have a business model that I really love where about 80% of my revenue comes from brands in some way, shape, or form, and about 20% comes from my students. And so, what I like about that is I'm able to make education affordable for the students and connect the tech companies to the people that they're trying to serve. So, just like any other YouTuber, I'll do brand partnerships, I'll do, sponsored content on their platforms, UGC content. Affiliate marketing is actually one of the things that I really love. And so, I have my students look to me for resource recommendations, tools recommendations. And so often that smaller community of people that are in my membership or come to my workshops are the same group of people that are, responding to those affiliate promotions for the tech tools that I love. And so it really creates a really nice flywheel in my business where everything is really connected, where I'm really just serving as that middleman, trying to get people to reach the people that they're trying to reach online. And so that's ultimately how things work. And so I do have a team that helps me facilitate this, which makes it a lot easier to accomplish in the sense that everybody kind of has their role. So I have editors, virtual assistants, my husband films my content, and I have people helping me to manage my community. And so, with all of those different elements together, I'm really able to provide a tech education environment that's great for everybody.
Okay, so we're going to try to dance between two topics here: how you grew your business, and then your tips for people who are bootstrapping their businesses.
Yeah, sure.
I'm sure this isn't the first time that's happened where we get to talk about your business and how you grew it, but also, that's what you help others do. So I'll try to navigate that as best we can. Let's
Yeah.
talk about your business and what were some of the early successes to get it off the ground. We heard about your YouTube videos and that sort of thing, but like once you started this as a business, what were the initial growth levers that you had?
I think just becoming a power user of some of the programs that I really loved was a game changer. So partnering with companies like Canva, like Flowdesk, and becoming a Canva verified expert, a Flowdesk partner. I've helped them with Flowdesk University and other initiatives that they've done. That really helped me to really scale what I was doing online. So I think for a lot of people, if you find yourself in a position where there's a tool that you love, you can do more than just, put your link in your description. You can actually go forth and create content specifically for driving traffic to your link. And then you'll more than likely get on the radar of these companies, and that can lead to other partnerships. So I think that was a really important transition for me to say, okay, what are the tools that I can't live without? How can I stay on top of the new releases? How can I stay on top of those new features? Share that information to my community when they're looking for it. And so then that will contribute to views, contribute to more clicks and more conversions for me.
I think, we all have different companies that we use their service and love it, right? Like I can think of 5 or 6 right now that I use probably almost daily, and I love their service. You actually formed strategic brand partnerships with some of these. You mentioned Canva, you mentioned Flowdesk. I'm sure people will be familiar with those platforms. Like what on a detailed level, or like what kind of benefit comes from pursuing and forming a brand partnership? Because it sounds like it makes sense, but it also sounds like work. So I'm just trying to understand the tangible benefit that comes from those sorts of partnerships.
Well, I think an important thing to take note of is that when I started my YouTube channel as a pursuit for a full time job, I didn't have a product to sell. And so
Mm.
ultimately, what affiliate marketing says is that while I am doing market research, while I am figuring out what my audience needs, I can get commission for driving traffic to something that already exists. And so for some people, it may just be an additional revenue stream. But for me, it was a pretty major one my first year doing YouTube full time. And so I think it's just super important for people to realize just the power of leveraging other audiences to help get your name in front of people. So I think that's been awesome for me to use my affiliate marketing journey as a way to scale brand partnerships and then to get the data to say that people do watch my content and take action on it. A lot of times when we market online, we don't always have the numbers to show
Mhm.
this is effective. And so these affiliate marketing programs have all this data tracking built in that you can utilize for other efforts in your business.
What is the timeline on your business? When did you start Bootstrap Biz Advice, and what's the growth been like? Did it take a while to get going, or was it more of an instant sort of validating, in terms of revenue or in terms of YouTube growth and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so Bootstrap Biz Advice as a brand started a lot earlier than it was like a formal LLC. The LLC didn't come until a few years into it. And so essentially what I was looking to do was simply replace my income that was coming in, from other sources. And so once I kind of hit that mark, I decided to say, okay, well, what is that enough number? What am I trying to scale to? Do I want it to just be enough for my full-time job, or is there more potential here? So I would just say, for a lot of people, I would look at YouTube more as a side hustle or a part time job before taking the leap,
Hmm.
and saying you want to do it full time. So that's what it looked like for me. It was a gradual thing. And then once I saw that, okay, I think this justifies having an LLC, it'll make things simpler. When our app came out, it was just like, okay, now is the time for us to, formally establish Bootstrap Biz Advice LLC and to really look at this not just as a YouTube channel, but as a tech education company.
Hmm. Let's talk about YouTube, okay?
Yeah.
And I want to get some of your tips for YouTube. I mean, you're very successful at YouTube. I'm looking right now at time of recording. We got 379 videos, well over 30,000 subscribers. Got some very popular videos, most of which I'm seeing like on Canva. So you talked about Canva. You've got really helpful videos here on Canva. What has worked for you on YouTube? We talk about YouTube all the time here. What are some things that you have seen be key influences on your success on YouTube?
I think really optimizing your videos for search is super important when you're getting started, because obviously a lot of
Mm,
people don't know who you are when you initially start a channel. But then once you're ready to actually start building a community, I would highly recommend live streaming. Live streaming for me helped me become a better public speaker. It helped me become a better educator. And so I think that actually having a time that I would show up every week and I would go live on my channel really helped me to expand my horizons as an educator because I constantly had a group of people to teach. And so I think that combination of the SEO driven content and live streaming is really what's contributed a lot to growth for me. Some people are really good with vertical content, and so shorts works really well. Others, they're more passionate about vlogging, and so you decide on what style works best for you. But for me, that was really where I put my attention was SEO driven content and then live streaming for that community building aspect.
it's really good advice on the SEO driven content when your channel's brand new because you don't have a subscriber base to get that content in front of. And so building content that you can get to rank over time and drive views and traffic and subscribers, that's really good. Now, we haven't talked a lot about going live on YouTube consistently. So I'd love to ask a couple questions about that. Talk more about why the live component is so good. We've heard people say like it doesn't drive the views, it doesn't drive the subscribers, et cetera, et cetera. Talk about why it's so valuable for you and why you mentioned it as one of the key drivers on YouTube.
I think ultimately, if someone is subscribing to your channel, they need a reason to keep coming back. And so if you have a busy schedule and you're not always in a position where you can edit long form content, you can easily go live and not have to worry about editing. So I think that's a great way for people to still show up on a regular basis and not have to worry about the post production side of it. But then you also have to think of it as an opportunity for your community to get answers to their questions in real time. Just like people see the power of a webinar, that is why live streaming is so powerful because people are engaging with you in real time. And so having a loyal group of viewers coming to your channel over and over and over again, it's going to contribute to your watch time, especially, but it's also going to contribute to your views on your content because it's giving them a reason to keep coming back versus only looking at your channel as, wow, I needed an answer to a question. I got it. I'm out. And then those folks don't tend to subscribe. So I find that if you're actually trying to build a community, then engaging with your community, whether it's in your community posts or it's through live streaming, it's a really powerful way for people to feel like they're connected to something.
Any tips on any sort of structural things for lives? Like, is there a certain length that you tend to land on? Is there a certain frequency? How do you promote the lives going forward? Do you just rely on YouTube to tell people, or do you send out an email? Again, I know I'm getting tactical, but people love hearing kind of the detailed tactics about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is possible for you to just hit go live and have people show up, but I honestly think that you'll get more subscribers and more live engagement if you promote it in some way, shape, or form. So typically, what I will do is I will promote it on Instagram just with like one or two Instagram stories about what the topic's going to be with the thumbnail and a link to watch it on YouTube just to try to drive people over from Instagram. And then primarily, I send out an email on Monday morning to my email list with the thumbnail, with the topic, encouraging them to watch. And I think another thing people forget is you have to remind people that the replay is going to be available.
Mm.
For a lot of people, they are super busy and they don't have the ability to show up live. But if they know, okay, this is something I should bookmark to watch later, that's going to still contribute to views on that same piece of content. So that's one of the things I love about YouTube is that when you go live, the live views count toward your view count and it continues to grow as people watch that replay. So I would say, I personally try to live stream Mondays at 10. You don't have to do it every week. You can decide on a cadence that works well for you. I know some people will do a once a month, almost like a town hall update.
Mm.
Some people will do every other week. So you just decide on what works well for your schedule. But ultimately, I would do some type of promotion to your audience that is following you on other platforms, whether it be email, Instagram, LinkedIn, other platforms, to get them there live. Because if that live experience is fun and engaging, then they're going to keep coming back. And so ultimately, I've seen that I'll have some of the same regulars showing up every single week to tune in to see what we're going to be sharing.
And that actually kind of begets the next question, which is you can't promote it elsewhere if you don't have anything that you've been building elsewhere. Sounds like you have Instagram. Sounds like you have an email list. You've built those up as well. I mean, almost chicken or the egg here. Like it sounds like you started with YouTube and that led to building a following elsewhere, an email list, on Instagram, or was it the other way around? Like talk about how integral they are and how you utilize these different platforms, not just YouTube.
Yeah, I think YouTube is a powerful way to grow your email list. And that's something that I recommend to a lot of people that I would not create content for the platform without some way to drive traffic to your list because ultimately you don't own any of the social media platforms and you want to be able to communicate with people on things that you own. So a lot of people on my list have come from subscribers and views on my YouTube videos. I happen to have a following on Instagram as well, but a lot of those people are completely different audience than the people that follow me on YouTube. So sometimes they come over, but sometimes they don't. And then I find that the LinkedIn audience, which I'm trying to grow now, is a group of other educators and leaders. And so it's almost like I have to get them used to the fact that I'm creating content on YouTube to kind of bring them over. So I think that if you're trying to grow your email list, you could conceivably do YouTube and just grow your list. But if you have other platforms that have already gotten an audience, I would definitely leverage them to get them on YouTube if that's where you're trying to put the bulk of your effort.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Well, a lot of people say that they have a hard time getting people onto their email list from YouTube. Do you have any tips or any ways you found that works well to get people to go from watching a video to then like off YouTube and, kind of filling out a form or what they need to do to get on an email list?
I think you just have to have a targeted piece of content that you're giving away that's almost like step two of your video. I think sometimes people give away too much in the YouTube video, and so there's no incentive for
Mm.
people to opt in. And so a good example would be someone who is showing a recipe. They show the recipe in the YouTube video, they assemble everything, but they're not putting the measurements or the ingredients in the description. You could say at the end of that video, if you would like to do this recipe on your own, make sure that you look for the link in the description to download the shopping list for your items and the full recipe. Well, now I have an incentive because I've watched the piece of content and you're offering me something that's going to save me time, save me money, or make me money. So I'm way more incentivized to actually go to where you're trying to send traffic to. But if they're watching the YouTube video and they've gotten everything that they need from that piece of content, there's no need to just sign up for a blanket newsletter just so you can have access to their inbox.
That's good. That's good. That's very good. You okay, going back to something you said a little while ago, you said about 80% of your revenue comes from I think basically strategic brand partnerships in terms of other brands, like, either advertising with you or affiliate revenue that comes from not your actual customer base. We talked about how you earn affiliate revenue. Do you get brands to sponsor your videos? Are there any other ways that brands are paying you to create the content?
Yeah, I'm always coming up with some type of, bespoke package, as people like to say, that makes sense with what the brand goals are. So if the brand is trying to reach a specific group of people, I help them come up with some type of, typically it's 3 months of a plan to say, okay, based on who you're trying to reach and what you're trying to accomplish, these are some of the things that I think it makes sense for you to put your name and logo on. So it could be a workshop, it could be a webinar, it could be a vertical piece of content, a YouTube video. I mean, we come up with a lot of creative ways to get people involved so that it's not just an ad integration into a YouTube video. That's certainly an option, but that's not the only option. And so that opens up ways for them to do things like sponsor a LinkedIn newsletter or a feature in my email list newsletter. And so I think by having those different touch points to say, I'm really concerned with trying to help you accomplish your goals. Let's figure out what within, my offer suite makes the most sense, then coming up with a plan and then testing that out over time to see if there's product market fit has been really effective for me.
Good tips. I promise I'm almost done on YouTube, but I have like one or two more questions.
No
Don't worry,
problem.
folks.
Ask away.
There's some fun stuff we're getting to here, but I'm trying to make sure I get through all the video stuff first.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your video creation process, and we're like I said, you're nearing 400 videos. That's a lot of content. Where do you come up with the ideas? What's your content creation process? This is a huge area of struggle for YouTube creators, especially people who are looking to get into video creation. You mentioned live, it knocks away the editing. That's the other component. Like, people can get very overwhelmed when they realize how much editing can be involved depending on the style of video you want to produce. So let's just talk about how you create videos, how you ideate, how you put it together, and how you've been able to sustain creating so many videos for so long.
Well, first and foremost, you have to have a team at some point. I mean, you can only do so much, and there's only so many hours in a day. I know that most people can't start with a team, but I do want to make it very clear that I don't do every aspect of my content creation process. And so that certainly helps. But when it comes to, well, what do I even make the video about? Or how do I know it's going to actually perform well? Well, there are tech tools that will help you to do the research. There's some new tools on the market which are really exciting, but then there's others that are tried and true. So, you've got TubeBuddy and vidIQ, but then there's also a new one called TubeSpanner, which is really interesting. And so ultimately, I really depend heavily on my community when it comes to what type of content I need to create. Do you have a problem right in this minute that me creating content would actually help you to solve? I tend to make a video about those things. If there is sponsor content that needs to come out, obviously that would fit in the gaps. And then you've got your weekly live streams. And so the topics for the live streams are either based on something I'm trying to promote within my business or something that just makes sense for my community. And so I think when you have access to just asking your community what they need and what they want, it makes the process of content creation so much more seamless because you're creating content for real people to address real problems. And you're not, just picking an idea out of thin air, hoping that it's going to perform well, which is what a lot of us do. We just create, and we keep, throwing spaghetti at the wall until something sticks. When you're actually building a community of people that you can help, you can just ask them and then respond with your content.
It's good. It's good. It's like you said, having the community kind of unlocks so much. You probably don't even have to ask them what they want to hear. You probably just get questions sent to you via email or in the comments. And even if you run dry one day, you could probably send an email and say, what do you guys want to hear about, and get a load of ideas. So, well, let's transition into a big topic that I've been so excited to talk to you about when we started talking about what an agenda would look like. And that is a membership. So you do have a membership component to Bootstrap Biz Advice. What does that membership look like from a high level? Maybe tell us about the details and how you landed on that idea and got it off the ground.
Well, I wanted a way for my YouTube audience to connect with me further. And I was really looking for a tech tool that could simplify that process so that I wouldn't have to leverage Slack or Facebook groups. And so I settled on partnering with the company Uscreen because they are a video heavy platform. So they create more of a Netflix style subscription model so that you can cast the videos to your TV. They have a mobile app, you can watch it on your phone. And so I really liked the idea of my video content being contained within the same platform that people could DM me, that they could message other community members, and that they could grow. And so ultimately, I settled on two tiers because I wanted it to make it really accessible, but also give people a way to continue investing in business education. And so the $10 tier is specifically geared to a workshop subscription. Every single month, you're going to get to learn from a subject matter expert. And from that workshop, you'll be able to do a deep dive into a specific topic. And so I look at, what's happening in the market, what are people wanting to learn more about? We just did one on newsletter monetization. So these are advanced high level workshops that really don't have much of a opt-in or a offer at the end. The workshop itself is the content. And so I bring in the educators and I really let them showcase their expertise and reach the audience that I have inside the membership. From there, I have a $50 tier where we really say, okay, if you need support with content marketing, if you have questions along the way about how you can grow on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, podcasting, email marketing, or brand partnerships, let me know what your growth goals are for the year, and I will plug you into the cohorts that make sense for what you're trying to grow. And so every month, in addition to that workshop, we have the coaching calls, and periodically we'll do pop up events. And if people want to do one on one coaching, they get a reduced rate for that. And so ultimately, what tends to happen is people say, I want to invest further in you because I've learned so much from you on YouTube. Let me get started with a $10 tier. Let me, start learning more from you there. And then those same people tend to upgrade as their needs increase and they want more support from me.
I always love asking how you came up with the two tiers, right? Because some people have one tier, it's one membership. Some people have multiple tiers. You have two tiers. You have a $10 and a $50 tier. You're really clear about what you get out of that. How did you come up with those tiers? And if I could ask, like, what percentage of people end up in the $10 a month tier? And then how many, as a percentage wise, end up in the $50 a month tier?
Yeah, so I would say the makeup of my membership is probably about 30% are in Star Student and 70% are in Bootstrap Creators. And so I think, there is that natural funnel that leads people from Star Students to Bootstrap Creators. And I'm always letting them know what we're doing in that $50 tier that they're missing out on. And so when they decide that it's a good time for them, whether it's just time on their schedule or the budget allows, then people tend to make that transition. And so I think for me, I just wanted an entryway for people to get more involved that did increase recurring revenue in my business, but was also just like an easy thing to say yes to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, if people say, oh, well, I don't necessarily want coaching right now, you don't have a course to sell, like how can I keep learning from you? And I go, oh, just become a Star Student. And so the more that I would just have an easy way for people to enter, the easier it was to just grow the membership passively.
That's really interesting to have like more than half of the people, well more than half, on your kind of top tier sort of plan. Now, another question that I know will be in the comments if I don't ask you: annual payment, monthly payment. Do you find, like, how long do people stick around for? Where have you found the sweet spot to be in terms of how you charge, when you charge, that sort of thing?
I mean, I think for a lot of people, I have seen people have success with like quarterly and annually. But the way I have it set up right now, it literally is month to month and people can cancel at any time. I just like to keep it really simple. My retention rate is pretty high. And so I find that I have very little churn, making it a really just simple setup.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for a lot of people, we kind of overcomplicate memberships and we want to do all the things and add all these bells and whistles, but then it gets harder to sustain. And so I think just making it a very simple process for everybody is really helpful. And I've had people leave and come back, if they need to pause their membership. They have the ability to pause it and then return. So I think just leaving that opportunity available for people to kind of choose their own adventure has been a really successful method for me.
Any tips for people who feel like they might have a community, at least in its infancy stages, that they could turn into a paid membership? Like, any tips for them? Any things to maybe miss to avoid? Sorry, like some mistakes or some things that you wish you had known going into it, or just some of the things that led to success for you. I mean, to have a monthly membership, good retention, not a lot of churn, able to charge month to month, more than half of the people in the more expensive tier. Like, you're doing a lot of these things really well. And I'm sure a lot of people are thinking like, okay, what do I need to do to take that next step to try to launch this with my brand?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to really consider is, are you okay with starting small? For a lot of people, they don't like to start small. They want to like jump out the gate and like have things take off and do this crazy big launch. But I really like the mindset of, the agile framework when it comes to tech, where it's like you got to launch it to be able to tweak it. You got to have it out there to be able to tune it and refine it. And so ultimately, my membership started on a free platform. I used to buy me a coffee, and then I migrated my community to a paid membership program. I didn't start with something that cost me a ton of money. It had a really high profit margin. And so I used that as proof of concept. And so I think you've got to prove that your community even wants the thing that you want to offer before you start to invest a lot of time and effort into building it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's the biggest mistake people make is they see, oh, everybody's transitioning to memberships now. Let me just hop on that bandwagon and build out all this stuff. And that may not be the best way to serve your community. And so again, having that open line of communication to see, are they even interested in having this product or service, that will help you to make sure that you put your effort into the things that matter most.
A lot of people who have communities, they say it's a lot of work. They say that, just to be forewarned, it's a lot of
Yeah.
effort. It's a lot of work. It sounds great to get that recurring revenue every month. And it sounds great. And I'm sure it is, but they say it's a lot of work. What would you say to that?
I think the power of a membership is it can take away work from other aspects of your business. And so it can make the process of launching offers easier. It can make the process of growing your coaching offers easier, because that same community typically wants to continue buying from you. And so I think that, yeah, it is some work to cultivate community, but again, you can always start small and over deliver versus feeling like, okay, every time someone messages in the platform, I have to respond immediately. Maybe you can have a 24-hour response time and not a 24-minute response time. So you get to kind of set those parameters as to what environment you want to live in. You don't have to be tethered to your phone all the time. You can also hire community managers that can take some of that lift off. And that's also one of the reasons why I have subject matter experts come in for those workshops. So
Mm-hmm.
even the teaching component isn't always fully on me. I can focus more on facilitating on those calls and less on being the person having to deliver, a piece of content in addition to the YouTube videos, the sponsor content, so on and so forth.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, it is your community. You can kind of do what you want with it. And as long as you can find a way to continue to make people feel like they're getting value, you can cater it to make sure that you're not getting buried in the amount of work and that sort of thing. So maybe with the last few minutes we have here, I mean, we still got a little bit of time. So like going away from some of the stuff we've been talking about and talking as the person advising bootstrapped businesses, I'm sure a lot of our listeners are in a spot where they're bootstrapping a business, where they're trying to grow a business without a ton of capital, trying to get traction in whatever they're doing online without having a ton of resources available. I mean, let's talk a bit about what are some of the things you do share to people who are starting businesses, especially ones who are trying to do it on a bootstrap budget.
Well, I think really looking at what the market needs and what you're interested in providing. I think there's a lot more time that needs to be spent into research than just posting and creating. And whether that is posting and creating free content or paid content, you really need to have a pulse on what can you add to the conversation. Because I think the more unique your brand messaging is and your point of view is, the easier it will be for people to kind of tap in and say, oh yeah, I'm missing that perspective I need in my life, or that content I need to help me to grow. So I think that, I spend a lot of time trying to figure out where in the online business community do I fit? What can I bring to the table that maybe someone else isn't covering? Or how can my unique perspective add something new that'll make it easier to stand out and to grow? And I think once you kind of figure out your lane, it's a whole lot easier to kind of like hit the gas and drive in it. And so that's been really helpful to me. And so I would just say, like, most business owners need to be a bit more introspective and less, reactive to things. It's like, okay, let's ponder some stuff. Let's plan some stuff out. Let's look at, how can we improve on things that already exist? Or is there something brand new that you can bring to the table? And I think once you kind of know that for yourself, it makes it a lot easier for you to start with that small offer that grows and grows and grows over time.
One of the things you had mentioned as we were going back and forth, putting together this podcast was, a strategy that you've utilized, and I'm guessing you have helped others utilize, is kind of relationship building. You even mentioned analog activities, which in a digital era, and this is certainly a digital entrepreneurship podcast, but analog activities like you mentioned, gift boxes and mail and in-person stuff. Talk about the role that's played and why you talk about that, why you advise on that.
I think it's just a simple way to surprise and delight. Again, it's, what can you add to the conversation that other people aren't doing? People are so inundated with digital things that as soon as you bring something tangible to the table, it changes the conversation. It helps you to stand out. It helps you to be memorable. It also helps you just to show that you care. And so I think, as you start to build relationships with people, find ways that you can take that online relationship offline, whether it's, you're going to a conference and you do a meetup with your community while you're in that city, or you send, your partner some type of gift saying, thank you so much for partnering with me. Whatever that looks like for you, whatever makes the most sense, I would just say find opportunities to add your human touch to things. Because I think in an age of AI, we are always competing with machines that can do things faster or more efficiently. And so as soon as you inject your humanity and your special touch and your handprint on it, it kind of helps you to stand out, and it helps you to really build lasting partnerships that you can keep coming back to. It's so much easier for you to retain a relationship or retain a customer than constantly be finding new people. And so I think that has been a huge part of how I've grown, is that I'm able to leverage relationships in the past because they're real, tangible relationships, and they're not so fixated on what can you do for me in this moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's talk for a little bit about your business and where you're headed with it. You have, as you had shared, you have, you generate 6 figures of income. You have a team of people that work with you. You have a YouTube channel that is growing, but still, not in the hundreds of thousands. Like, where are you going to be putting your time and your effort to grow your business in 2025? And, maybe even if you're looking further ahead.
I think a really practical thing that I've been wanting to do is to grow on LinkedIn and to really understand that platform. I find that a lot of the tech partners that I partner with are there.
Mm.
And kind of the rat race of Instagram doesn't really align with how I like to show up online. And so growing my LinkedIn as a resource and as another way to network has been super important to me. And then just really scaling what I already have. I think I've spent a lot of time figuring out a business model that works for me. And so really seeing all those different aspects of my business continue to grow and to scale up is something that I'm really excited about.
So I have a little bit of time. So I'm going to go to one of the questions that I wanted to ask, but wasn't sure if I'd have time to ask. So we'll jump back a little bit now. If you're listening, we're going to jump back. Apologies for jumping back, but we have time. And I want to ask this question because going back to your YouTube videos, going back to your content creation, I'd asked you about how you come up with the ideas. I'd asked you about how you produce all that. YouTube content, video content can be overwhelming for a lot of people, not only in terms of what to produce, but then to actually make it. And I didn't have a chance to ask you about how, if at all, you are taking that one piece of content and using it across different platforms, using it in different ways. Some people will say it's being repurposed. when you make a video and you publish on YouTube, are there any other ways you're using that content, whether it's the video or the idea behind it in other areas? And if so, could you kind of outline that process?
Yeah, I would say, for a lot of YouTubers, they actually look at that YouTube content as the top of that content funnel. It's like you put the most work and most energy into the YouTube video, and then how can you piecemeal that and let it show up on other different platforms? I mean, you can take that same piece of content and you can use the script from the YouTube video as an email that you're sending out to your list. You can use that as a newsletter on LinkedIn. You can use it as a series of posts on LinkedIn, a carousel on Instagram. You could turn it into a short that you're repurposing as a reel and as a LinkedIn video. And so I think ultimately it's like you can take all of that research and you can say, how can I pull out the audio component? How can I pull out the video component? How can I pull out the script? In some cases, how can I even just pull out the graphics alone and create content around the idea of what this video was about? And so I think that because you're using so many different disciplines and content formats to actually make the video, you have a lot of potential to repurpose it because you're starting with something long and you're chopping that up into something small versus starting out with a small piece of content like a reel and saying, well, how can I expand that? It's a whole lot easier to go from long to short than from short to longer.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done that in a lot of different ways, and that has saved me a ton of time marketing online. And it's also helped me to ultimately drive traffic back to that YouTube video. So if I tease it out in the carousel, I can drive traffic to that YouTube video. If I tease it out in a LinkedIn post, say the link to the full video is in the comments. And so there's always that engine saying the YouTube video is the primary piece of content. If you want to go deeper, if this piece of the puzzle was intriguing to you, well, then you're definitely going to enjoy the whole thing.
Where have you found the best places or the best opportunities for repurposing it? Is it, using that on LinkedIn? Is it turning it into shorts? Is it, kind of summarizing the video in an email? Like what have been the best applications beyond just the YouTube video, but taking that same content idea or even the video itself and using it elsewhere?
I think carousel posts are really powerful because they ultimately become like mini blog posts. And so I think if you structure your content format people talk about a lot on YouTube is a listicle, 5 ways to da 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 da, 3 things to think about before you fill in the blank. And so you've basically already created those bullet points that you can turn into that carousel post. Well, that format of going, slide by slide, giving them that hook, those few points, and then a call to action, that carousel can live on Instagram. It can live on LinkedIn, and so you're able to actually take that same piece of content and actually post it in other places. You don't even have to change the content itself. You can just utilize what you did on YouTube, format it to be a multi-slide piece of content, and then have it show up in multiple places. I've also seen people post content like that on a YouTube post and then say, check out the full video. So carousels are really effective. And I think every platform right now is really loving vertical video content.
Yeah.
And so if you can take your long form content and you can take one snippet from your YouTube video that's really impactful. And I think the important thing to remember is something that can stand alone, something that is helpful by itself and not just a preview, then you can more easily drive traffic to your long form content. So if people are satisfied with that piece of content and say, oh, wow, that was super helpful, I definitely need to learn, the other 2 tips or the other 4 ways, then they're more likely to bounce from that vertical piece of content to the long form. But if it's just like, oh, just watch the full video by clicking on the link in the description, that's not as helpful and it's not as entertaining. And so people tend to not take action after that.
Yeah, you're watching short form video because you want something quick. And if the video immediately just tells you, go do something you don't want to do right now, it's not going to work as well.
Right, for sure.
Well, hey, this has been great. I've learned a lot. I appreciate, we bounced around to a lot of topics. I knew we would. Whenever we get someone on that has grown their business via the same strategies they kind of use to help their business serve their clients, like we're going to end up talking about a lot of different things. You were great. And sorry for kind of yo-yoing all over the place. But it was really great to have you and to learn not only how you grew your business, but how you're helping your clients grow. And I certainly enjoyed that piece on memberships. Where can people follow along with what you're doing? We've teased your YouTube channel a lot. I'll make sure that's in the show notes. But like, where else can people follow along with what you're doing on an active basis?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely would say hop over to bootstrapbizadvice.com if you would like to become a member and, learn deeper from